Dr. Sandy Schaefer, and welcome to this little drum lesson about rolls. Once again, this series is designed for beginning students, and we're going to be talking about playing closed rolls first. Now, rolls are actually pretty easy. The first thing I do is show a student how to buzz their sticks. Now, we already addressed the grip. We have the thumb and index finger directly across from each other. We have the stick coming out the back of our hand. We have these three fingers, the back three fingers off the stick. And now we have the tip of our index finger underneath the stick. And it's going to be putting a little bit of pressure on the drumstick. Once again, the drumstick bounces like this. Big bounces to little bounces. What I want to do is get past the big bounces and get to the little bounces. So I'm pushing a little pressure on the stick with my index finger. I want to make it sound like this. If the stick sounds like this, then you're squeezing too hard and you're pushing into the drum with your wrist beyond the point when you should be relaxing. We're going to stop pushing down once the stick hits the drum, and then put a little pressure on the stick with the index finger to get this buzz. Now once you can do that, you want to take your left hand and do the same thing. Now we want to match up the hands next. Now what's very common is this. We can have the big bounces with my left hand. Right-handed drummers, of course, would have a weaker left hand, and they're not squeezing as tightly enough at the moment of impact. So here, the left hand needs more squeeze. So if now, this frequently happens. I just increased the amount of squeeze evenly with both hands, and now the right hand is squeezing too hard. But the left hand sounds fine. So now I have to squeeze a little bit less with the right hand. Now I want you to think of this image, pouring water from one glass to another glass. Now you have to pretend these are glasses, and the motion looks like this. Now go ahead and try this. Don't spill. Now what happens is, before the water's all done pouring out of the first glass, the second glass is starting the upward motion. So we don't totally drain the water out of each glass. This is the motion we want to think about next. When we start to overlap the buzzes, I want you to put one hand down while the other hand is still buzzing. I found that if I tell students to play faster, when they're doing this, they end up sounding like this. Yeah, that's faster. So I've taken to suggesting they put one stick down while the other stick is still bouncing. Now generally they can come back the next week and make roll sounds about like this. And that's great. So this is drum lesson number one as far as rolls, buzzes. Go home and you learn how to buzz the sticks. And what you're really doing is developing a feel for the rebound of the practice pad. Now, what common problems do we have? The left hand. What we're doing now is, you see my index finger is pointing down? Now, from across a crowded band room, when I see a student with their finger pointed down, I know they can't roll. Why can't they roll? Because they're not holding the stick with their index finger. They're holding it somewhere. They're holding it with these fingers in the back. Now, what it ends up sounding is like this. Now, unfortunately, nobody will correct this, and the student will think, oh, my rolls doesn't quite sound smooth, but if I play it faster, it'll get better. No, it doesn't get any better. It just sounds uneven faster. So now the trick is, wrap the index finger around the stick and let go of the back fingers. The back three fingers shouldn't really touch the stick at all. Now, another problem is not holding the stick at all, having no fulcrum. And if you can see, I've got now my index finger and thumb are touching underneath the stick. Now what this means is I have no way to put pressure on the stick. Now what students who play this way usually learn they can put pressure on the stick by pushing down on the stick with this part of their index finger. And they have this sideways method of playing. music educator out there, I'm sure you've seen a lot of this in your band. Okay, of course, the quick fix is we want to make sure that we have the thumb and index finger holding the stick. The back 3 fingers are off the stick. Now, there are a couple other problems we have. Not hitting the drum or not making sound the same way with each hand. Now, listen to what happens when I turn my left hand sideways. So I'm going to change from pointing the top of my hand towards the ceiling to pointing my hand at the wall. Hear it going, woo, 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 woo. It's got that oscillation in it. Simple fix. All I have to do is turn my hand over. And that smooths out the roll instantly. Another problem, and I usually see this with right hands, and right-handed drummers, by locking the wrist and using the arm. Once again, so here's an okay roll. I'm going to lock my right wrist. Hear how all of a sudden we have a very accented beginning, you hear a very tight buzz. But we're making sound differently, so the roll can never sound the same. Solution is, of course, use your wrists. Another problem I find is students will play with one hand closer to the edge of the drum. Definitely is not an even roll. Simple solution, move both sticks into the same area of the drum. I try to, and actually on my practice pads and in the practice studio, I draw 2 little circles about halfway between the center and the edge of the drum, and I tell students they need to aim for those circles. Once we learn how to play the closed roll, an open roll is really easy to learn how to play, because again we want to manipulate the bounces. Remember the demonstration with the drumstick machine? Big bounces to little bounces. For the open roll, we want to get those big bounces. How do we get those big bounces? We don't squeeze quite so hard. So, what I do with students is get them to feel what the open roll feels like. And I do that by tweaking the formula for rebound. The formula for rebound is mass times velocity. If I can get them to hit the drum louder, the sticks will bounce up higher and they'll become more open sounding, okay, because they will only have time to bounce twice. So the way I get them to hit the drum faster is by telling them to pick up their sticks higher. So I have students roll about like this. And then I tell them to start picking their sticks up higher, and that'll usually happen. Now, I know in old drum pedagogy, we taught the double stroke roll from the slow side. We told people you went right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. Now the only problem with that is once you got to a certain tempo, you had to start bouncing the sticks. And at that break point, it was really difficult to get the students over. Usually, they just played very, very tensely. It's very easy to go from a closed roll to an open roll by simply picking your sticks up higher and not changing your tempo and not increasing the squeeze. And an open roll will just happen. Once a student feels what that feels like, they're able to make the jump from open rolls to closed rolls quite easily. Well, this is Dr. Sandy Schaefer from Chadron State College. I hope you enjoyed this lesson and hope you'll look forward to the next one.